Hello once again and welcome to my cricket channel, the SNS Cricket Diaries. Guys, as we all know, a lot of disruption is going on these days in world. Look at what Donald Trump is doing in Venezuela, what he has done, what he is about to do in Greenland, it seems, and the world seems to be in a lot of conflict and a lot of disruption. But today we're going to talk about another kind of disruption that happened back in the 90s in cricket, and there's no one better than the guest I have with me. More than a guest, he's a dear friend of mine, who is an authority when it comes to Pakistan cricket, when it comes to the disruptions that Pakistan has got into cricket over the years and over the decades. So I have with me noted cricket writer, presenter, anchor Ahmer Naqvi with me. Ahmer, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. This was, I think, a very, very over the top description. I appreciate it. I'm very thankful for it.
No, I think I would say, Emma, not just because I'm doing this interview with you. I have spoken about you to a lot of people, and I have done two interviews with Emma on this channel, and both have been very well received. Emma is a fantastic writer. It's such a pity, I'll say on air, that I don't get to read too much about Ahmer Naqvi's articles that he used to write on Cricinfo, and not just articles on cricket, but a lot of cultural aspects as well that Ahmed has written on Cricinfo related to cricket and related to Pakistan in general. So I just wish, Ahmed, that you can will have more access to your writings in coming days, years, and all. So, but thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure. Firstly, how are you doing, Ahmed?
I'm good. I'm good. Or I also wanted to add that obviously, writing, just the platforms for writing over the last decade have really disappeared. And so belatedly having acknowledged that, like I've set up well, I used to run a YouTube page with Usman Samyuddin. We were doing a podcast, and now I've been trying to make these videos, which I feel in another life were blogs or essays. Like we can share the link in the description or
Absolutely.
whatever. So I think the last thing that I wrote, um, they're all in Urdu, mostly in Urdu. But yeah, the last thing that I wrote, I feel like was very much like a blog I would have written for Cricinfo like 10 years ago. So yeah, do check it out. It's about the fact that we don't hate Australian cricket enough.
No, in fact, I don't know whether you are referring to. So, of course, Ember also runs a YouTube channel called Batta Fast, on which he
Yeah,
has.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, sorry, I should have named Butta Fast. That
Okay, okay.
bad, bad publicity,
Okay.
but
No,
yeah.
I thought probably since you said that they are all in Urdu, I thought you're referring to some other platform where you have written those articles. Because of course I watch
No, no,
Batta
no, no.
Fast.
So yeah, 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 yeah. The last few episodes of Butta Fast
Mm.
essentially they're a bit more like Urdu centric,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they're
In
yeah. But
in terms of
anyways,
spoken, you
yes,
mean? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, and in fact, yes, I was about to mention your podcast, Butterfast. I think a lot of the cricket lovers would know, especially the ones who would like to follow cricket in Pakistan. So do check that out. The link will be given in the description of this video. In fact, the latest video that Ahmed Naqvi has done on Butterfast, where he mentions about his liking, quote unquote, liking for Australian cricket, and in fact, and the way you have done it, Emma, was in a very sort of fast-paced version, quick, not like a long podcast that you usually do. And in fact, one of the comments which I read in about the video was very apt, that that the person mentioned that even Ahmed Naqvi has got into T20 mode, and but Pakistan are
But
still.
Babar Azam hasn't.
Yes, yes, yes. So I think that was quite cheeky. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a pity that Osman is not able to make it on your show most of the times, because I'm sure he must also be very busy and occupied. But I fondly remember driving on my way to office or coming back, long journeys in traffic. I would switch on the YouTube and watch your podcast with Osman. So please
Thank
keep the
you
good
so much.
work going, Emmer, and fantastic to have you. So, while Emma, so the topic, the disruption we will mention. I think most of the die-hard cricket lovers would probably know by now what disruption I'm talking about. But Before coming to that, Emma, a few of the controversial topics of the day, I would like your comment on them. So, there's a tussle going on between the Bangladesh Cricket Board and the ICC regarding Bangladesh's participation in the upcoming T20 World Cup. So, the latest that we got to know was that the ICC has given an ultimatum to the Bangladesh Cricket Board that either you come or we will replace you with another team. So, how do you see this panning out, and how do you see this has worked out so far? What is the role of the BCCI in all this? Could this have been managed a little better? And in fact, Pakistan was one of the 15 members who actually voted in support of Bangladesh. So, what do you have to say about that as well?
So I think that I'd say a couple of things on that. I think firstly, as like, writers, analysts, etc., um, there is a very easy kind of connection to be made, right? Like you started by talking about Trump and like Venezuela and Greenland or whatever. And so essentially we're talking about like the bullying of a rules-based order. And that's in the shortest possible answer, like, that's what you can just point towards and say. Um, I think having spoken to a few people about the story, there is more nuance to it. And I think particularly nuance that the Indian and Bangladeshi audience for this or in general would be a lot more aware of. I don't think I was certainly surprised in Pakistan, kind of hearing about this from a Pakistani perspective, which is the fact that, unlike Pakistan, that's the eternal enemy, like Bangladesh ke saath, India has a very different relationship, and particularly the main opposition party right now, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the BJP has strong links with them, where the external affairs minister attended the funeral for Khalda Zia, and Modi sent a handwritten note, and etc. etc. So I think that um, again, like there's obviously a lot more in the middle that I just skipped past. But I think what I wanted to bring up was that from a Pakistan perspective, I think when we're looking at like what the BCCI is doing or whatever, you're very much aware that this is feels like it's going to last for a very long time, mainly because it has lasted for a very long time, right? So whether you want to start it from whatever, it's been almost 2 decades where Pakistan's kind of been dealing with this. And so I think, the calculus is very different than for Bangladesh, where right now the cricket board itself has been kind of handcuffed by statements and actions taken by the government, which has been an unpopular government that is on its way out. Um, so that's all of that aside, I think ultimately, like, any kind of comment or understanding you have is that it is precisely the kind of behavior that we're witnessing with Trump, right? Because even with the ICC, where when India says that it doesn't want to come to Pakistan, then we create a hybrid model, much to the detriment of Pakistan's hosting and revenue. Forget like even the performance, but just it's a big loss to the host nation. And then that same logic isn't applied when someone else asks for that. So, but I don't think anyone is surprised or shocked by that, right? Like, sure, we can write on Twitter or whatever that this is really wrong, etc. But I don't think a single person who follows cricket would have been surprised that this is the outcome.
Yeah. So while I think the jury is still out on that, but I guess by tomorrow we'll come to know what exactly is the scenario. So yeah, now coming to the main topic. So, guys, as you all must have seen in all my videos before, this channel is not just about current cricket series and moments and the hot talking points in the current scenario, but also I invite guests who have a deeper understanding of the game and would tell us a little bit more about certain fascinating historical aspects of the game. So, as an Indian cricket fan, when I used to watch cricket in the 90s, especially against Pakistan, there used to be a sense of calm before the storm in the sense that a lot of the times, there would not be any wicket that would fall in the first few overs of an ODI. But then, when it came to, say, by the end of 35th or 40th over in an ODI or in Test cricket as well, you would see things happening, and things started happening, and the disruption that I'm talking about is the reverse swing. So reverse swing is the is the topic that we're going to talk about, and Emmer is an absolute authority on that. He has interacted with cricketers, ex-cricketers. So for my channel, it's an absolute delight to have him talk about this. So Emmer, firstly, take us all the way back to, I don't know, maybe the 80s, I guess. How did it start? How did this concept of reverse swing start in Pakistan? Because in India, we used to have that time Kapil Dev and maybe probably Manoj Prabhakar, who would swing the ball more naturally, and it was natural swing. It was not reverse swing. So how did
Siddharth, just give me
being
1 second.
yes? So yeah, I mean, I'm going to continue the chat with Emmer. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, he's back. So you can hear me, Emmer, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So how did a country that was so near to India in terms of geographical distance was able to create this kind of an art? So how did it all begin? Take us a little bit back into the historical aspect of this art of reverse swing.
So, Siddharth, you've been very kind to me, but I think anyone who's watching this, like the ultimate, like basically both the John Lennon and Paul McCartney of cricket writing in Pakistan is Usman Samiuddin. And, I would highly recommend reading his history, The Unquiet Ones. Because anything that I know also, like so much of it directly comes from reading or speaking to Usman. And he's done this kind of research very deeply. And I think what you'll find is that, very, very broadly speaking, Sarfaraz Nawaz actually is often credited with, if not inventing, then really introducing reverse swing to Pakistani cricket and international cricket as well. Um, and I think, and then kind of Pakistani bowlers, starting with like Imran and then Wasim, Waqar, Shoaib, etc., are very good proponents of it, etc. And so, like, obviously it's a very long history, and I feel there's literally a book that addresses it. That's the way to go. But I would really focus on, and you brought that up in your question, how did the place, like, is right next to India and whatever, like what happened there. So there are two things that I'd like to talk about. First of all, when we look at the history of cricket, right? And cricket is a colonial sport, not just in the sense that, say, football was introduced by the colonists, but because they were just playing it. Cricket was a tool of the colonial government, right? The tool of their cultural domination, and it's that means that cricket was like spread a certain way in certain places and adopted by certain populations within those colonized people, right? Essentially the elite. And so basically, like Devdas में जो Devdas होता है, who's like this Indian guy who goes to the UK to study and come back, like that's who cricket was really aimed for. And then you see in these colonies, and obviously I've talked about this on with you before as well. There's that CLR James, the great socialist writer from the Caribbean, really formed the theoretical basis of this, but you could see it with your eyes that, like, the West Indian team played cricket in a very unique and different way than like the colonial kind of standard. Um, and we starting with the West Indies, I think then you see it in Pakistan, you see it in Sri Lanka, you see it in Afghanistan, and obviously cricket is a very tiny sport. If it spreads more, I'm sure you'll see it a lot more often, where these countries cricketing setups seem to be a lot more open to, um, you know, for the simplest term, unorthodoxy. I think for the most kind of loaded way of looking at it is that, like, almost a decolonized way of approaching the sport. Um, and I think when I was younger, I've really argued that India never really produced that kind of decolonized or radical or unorthodox kind of cricketers, because maybe the Indian state was a more established one, or Indian cricket scene was more elite driven or whatever. I think as I've grown older, I've realized this was a very simplistic explanation, and I don't really have any of the expertise needed to say why this didn't happen in India. So I'll stick to what's easier to observe, where you can see that, yes, like, Muralidharan or a Malinga in 90% of cricket setups, where once they join club or an academy or the national setup or the under whatever, someone would tell them either get rid of them or tell them to behave differently, right? Um, and I think that, uh, having worked in Pakistan cricket a little bit as a reporter and then working the PSL, what's really shocked me is that if it has its way, the Pakistan cricket establishment would also really get rid of any unorthodoxy, and they're really, really they have a terrible understanding of like what to promote and what not to promote in terms of like style and talent and whatever. But probably because the system itself is quite ineffective, Pakistan has kept creating that or kept kind of having that approach to cricket. And so, coming more specifically to reverse swing or bowling, I think something again that um, is hard to pick up if you're not from Pakistan. I think now in the diaspora, people have an understanding of it, is like tape ball cricket, right? Like, so every kind of country has its own, informal or street version of cricket. But tape ball, which like also emerges from like people playing with tennis balls, which as you may already know, has a bounce where it kind of sits up, so it's very easy to bat against. And then in Karachi, in particular, there was people. I think his name was Nadeem Finger or something, but like he was be able to squeeze the tennis ball before flicking it, which was a spin and whatever would be a great. So to there's a Cricket Monthly story on it, on the history of tape ball cricket and how it comes out of Karachi. But they start putting electric tape on it, etc. One of the products of that is that the tape rips on. It really makes you understand reverse swing really well. If the tape kind of rips away from one side, um, the anyone can reverse swing it. Like I've reverse swung it, and tape ball cricket is not related to reverse swing. Reverse swing emerges as a phenomena before tape ball emerges. But I think they both represent, a kind of different take on cricket, a way of kind of deconstructing or not caring about like the legalities of it, whichever way you want to, kind of theorize about it. But I think like the point I was trying to make is that we definitely see there are certain cricketing cultures that are um, that end up creating and perhaps tolerating. I think every cricket culture probably creates like unorthodox players, but like kind of tolerating them enough to bring them up to like the national kind of international setup. You see that in various cultures, and I think to me that represents like an openness to seeing and playing cricket differently outside of like the culture that the colonizer promoted. And I think us sense mein that's where you kind of situate tape ball and you kind of situate reverse swing, because as I said, they're distinct phenomena. But by the time um, by the time the 90s comes around and later on, us waqt tak it became really ingrained in culture for like so the world that I'm born into and growing up, on television you're seeing your bowlers reverse swinging, and then you're playing in the street and like okay, there were lots of rules and stipulations about taking the tape off or not, but theoretically like anyone could do it, right? Like so, and you were seeing people do it. And so I think that really obviously made it a big part of the culture, and spoke to, I think, the fact that this was a culture that was creating people who were willing to do things differently. And I think obviously the really big change ultimately is like there's certain things that happen in terms of structure and they might be inevitable. But I think in Pakistan, and again Usman's the one who's really written very well about this and kind of theorized about this, but Pakistan definitely had fast bowlers. But if you look at Fazil Mahmood or Sarfaraz Nawaz, they're not necessarily like kind of express pace kind of like Fazal, kya kehte hain, our first kind of fast bowling hero Fazal Mahmood is really a product of like a very different era of pitches, including matting pitches, which he was a very big great proponent of. I mean, and then Sarfaraz Nawaz as well. Like, he was very tall, and but he's not of like an express kind of bowler. He's a kind of this hybrid thing. But it's really Imran Khan who kind of develops as this first fast bowler, and Usman's book charts how before him every kind of list of like the top bowlers in like domestic cricket was spinners, and after his retirement it was all fast bowlers. And so Imran Khan and Sarfraz Nawaz, they're really like this example of like this cultural change overcoming like what was the structural reality. Because ultimately, both pitches in Pakistan are not that different from pitches in India, right? There's regional variations, but ultimately that's subcontinental pitches. So they're not liable to produce express fast bowlers. But like Sarfraz Imran Khan kind of kickstart this lineage. And I think again, reverse swing has a big part to play in it because it gives you a reason to want to be a fast bowler, right? Because it gives you some like you can keep like trying to bowl it as fast as you can on those pitches. It's not the most efficient way. There are better ways to get batters out than trying to do that. But once reverse swing is into the picture, then that kind of allows that possibility. And so then, like by the 90s already, like, kind of it had become a phenomena already, right? Like, by the 80s, etc., the Wasim and then later Waqar and whoever else is coming are really great at it. Obviously, the '92 World Cup final, Wasim Akram's reverse swing spell is so famous, and then so that part, like that's where like it happened because of all of these things coming together, like on a structural level, that Pakistan cricket was more open to these innovations, or basically reverse swing, which was called cheating, not an innovation. And then secondly, that so that was the structural reason. But then there was also the persons of like Sarfaraz and Imran Khan that create this like cultural shift, right? Where they are, yes, the kind of the conditions for tape ball, reverse swing, etc. were there, but then they're the kind of people who really make it come to life, and then like they influence so many people who, and then it's all symbiotic.
Yeah. So I'd like to actually digress a little bit from here, but before that, I want to just read out a pretty nice observation by Sambit Bal, who is the editor in chief of Cricinfo. He references Emmer, a match between Pakistan and India in 1982, where
Mm,
just to tell you the score, so Pakistan made 452 and won by an innings, with India being all out for 169 and then 190. So it is that match where Imran Khan picked up 8 wickets. And so he says that this wasn't a test that you would call great in the traditional sense. It was a no contest. Pakistan won by an innings and 87 runs, their biggest win over India at the time, and one they went on to better two tests later at Hyderabad. But the match was significant for the performance of one man. Imran Khan took 11 wickets, 8 of them in the second innings, 5 in the space of 25 balls, and the legend of reverse swing was born. Sarfraz Nawaz
mm.
is credited as being the earliest exponent of reverse swing, but on that third afternoon of the Karachi test, Imran gave the most fearsome exhibition of the art, which was yet to acquire a name. So, any memories of? I'm sure. Obviously, probably you were not even born at that time, but with the knowledge that you have. So, do you remember that test match, or have you spoken about that test match, or has anyone spoken to you about that particular
Yeah, so
bowling
it
experience?
happened a year before I was born.
Okay.
And I think that series and that era is, so if I'm not wrong, I think 82 is also the same. Now I'm getting my dates wrong, but basically there's another test match. Vishen Singh Bedi is the captain for India, and Pakistan had to chase down a small total in like one session or something.
Mhm.
And Bedi had put like all the fielders on the boundary, and Asif Iqbal and Javed Miandad, I believe it was those two. They were basically start taking like these quick singles and doubles, etc. Now, all of this that I'm describing is now like that is cricket, right? Like I'm literally describing what happens in cricket now. But at that point, the idea of limited over chases and like using running between the wickets as an effective weapon, all of that was novel. And so I bring that up to say that it's like that those series versus India are coming at a time where like the arguably the greatest Pakistani side ever is, playing. And and it's really where the greatest Pakistani cricketer ever stakes his claim as like the kind of great, and so ye wali series there, the 86 series as well. I think it's really unfortunate that in Pakistan and in cricket in general, like these clips and highlights, etc., are so difficult, if not impossible, to kind of witness. Because I think the clips that I've seen or memories I have of that is obviously Imran Khan generating like this insane amount of in swing where he's bowling on the sixth stump or something, and then like it's coming back and taking off like stump. Like I'm now, because like I didn't. These are clips that exist in ephemeral ways all over the internet. So um, I don't have that memory that somebody probably who watched them would of it. And I think, I was thinking about this, like even when, thinking about like, okay, what were the greatest spells that I saw, etc. I think one of the blessings, but the curse was that, I was born in 83. So I was like, I get to turn 9 years old when Pakistan wins the World Cup. And then like during the 90s, like by the time the 90s end, I'm still 16 years old, right? So I'm really young for this. And the first kind of things that I watch or have memories of are like Sharjah finals that Pakistan won, and then the World Cup 92. So I think, there were certain ideas that, like, when you're a child, like, you don't really know what the world is. So whatever's happening is you take as a given. And what I took as a given was like, like Pakistan can always make a comeback when in the final 10, 15 overs, like, doesn't really matter how much they need or what the score is. Secondly, that like any fast bowler can bring it in and take it out at will. It's like a very simple thing to do. Um, you know, uh, and yeah, so like there were spells that in hindsight I realize are great spells of reverse swing. And partly also because television technology increased considerably, and then also the acceptance of the thing increased considerably. So there are infamous kind of reverse swing spells that in that moment also I didn't really realize that this is something special, because that era was full of those moments, right? Like, so I think that was like, so, and that I bring that up to kind of give you the idea of like how pervasive it was, that it actually I didn't know of a world outside of it.
Yeah. So now I wanted to ask you, Emma, slightly digressing in not just not actually digressing, but it's part of the talk itself, that you talked about the earlier Pakistani bowlers not being very fast. So Sarfraz Ahmed and probably Imran Khan to a certain extent, until, of course, when Wasim and Waqar came, and then before Shoaib there was Mohammad Zahid as well for a very short period of time, an extremely fearsome fast bowler. And you said that the pitches in Pakistan were not too different from India, and we used to always have this constant feeling in the 90s that why are we not in India able to produce those fast bowlers? So, do you think that a reverse swing sort of, in a way, encouraged the likes of Wasim and Waqar to ball even faster than the previous generations? Was that the reason? Was that the difference you would say between India and Pakistan? That because, I mean, am I trying to make it too simplistic? You can tell me that, is it because of the reverse swing that encouraged the next generation of bowlers, that is Wasim, Waqar, and Shoaib, to bowl fast and to focus on bowling fast, whereas in India we did not have that kind of a model being set by someone in the 80s for the likes of say Javagal Srinath and Venkatesh Prasad to bowl to 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 bowl fast, or even to have talks of bowling fast, because we also used to think the same way, Ahmed, that you just said, that the pitches were the same. So what was that difference? So many people say, in India, that our fast bowlers did not used to eat meat. So a lot of the bowlers
Mm.
that we are talking about in the 90s were South Indian bowlers like Javagal Srinath and Venkatesh Prasad. And usually, of course, things have changed a lot now in India. A lot of places have become meat eating places. But back in the day, they were pure vegetarians. So we used to talk with our friends, and it was not just with our friends; it was sort of a perception from the experts also, so as to say, that the Pakistanis were meat eating. They used to eat meat, so they had more aggression in them, and that's why they used to bowl faster. So, I mean, I don't know how simplistic that would be, but do you think that reverse swing was that one main reason for the difference between the speeds of the Indian bowlers and Pakistani bowlers, or there is more to it than meets the eye?
So I think it to this whole I'm so happy that we live in a world where we've moved past these kind of very colonizer descriptions, which we all grew up with, right? I mean, I think in the 2000 uh, yeah, Samjhota Express tour 2003 में या 4 में
जी, जी,
जब इंडिया आया है पाकिस्तान, I think that was like kind of like a peak of that discourse. And I think I'm really glad, thankful to first like maybe Zahir and Irfan Pathan, and then later down the line, Jasprit Bumrah and Shami and whatever. All of these, uh, even like someone like Varun Aaron, who Aaron like is not a very successful fast bowler, but like
he
you
bowled
know
fast. Yeah.
the idea was that, oh my god, like this is this big cultural difference, and martial races and blah 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 blah, all of that bullshit that we've inherited from our colonial past. So um us tarike se, I think I'm yeah, like, so let's just put all those things to the side. I think, as I've mentioned, right, like there's a bunch of things over here like that in Pakistan. The pitches, first of all, if we're going to get a little bit more nuance about it, they're closer to like northern Indian pitches, like and Karachi is slightly different, and then we don't really have any South Indian kind of equivalent. So there is that. Um, uh, but I think like that was just I wanted to put that to the side again to clarify some things. But I think, as I said, Pakistan also had a history of like, venerating batters. Like our early heroes are like people like Hanif Muhammad, and then like Javed Mianda, etc. And then it's in the 70s where like a lot of Pakistani players have access to the county game, and they're really kind of, it's a very, and in my mind, it's very analogous to like the IPL right now, where like it's that kind of premier domestic competition where internationals can go and really pick up the skill set, which can have a big impact on their local team as well. I think that's very broadly speaking is what happening in the 70s, etc. And then from that kind of very modern and radical team that Mushtaq Muhammad leads in the 70s, etc., you come to, as I said, like, Imran Khan is really such a pivotal figure in this. And so, okay, when we talk about like, let's say the specifically Wasim and Waqar, like Wasim is debuted in like 84, right? So like even if we talk about reverse swing or whatever, and maybe it was prevalent in the domestic game or anything, but in a lot of ways, like it was too new a thing for you and I to say like, okay, that's the number one reason, right? So I think when we talk broadly about fast bowlers, like it has to be all of those things where the game was changing. There was an openness to playing it in different ways, like not following the rituals of cricket as England wants us to play it, playing it in different ways. There was that culture, etc. You have like some great, actually great bowlers who, Imran, for example, again, like he's a very wayward bowler when he starts out, but he is also just like that decision to go fast. I feel this is the 70s and 80s, right? Where the West Indies had set the standard for like fast bowling. And so like everyone want like, that's again like another culture which is unorthodox and radical. Like I would feel they set that standard for like, okay, if everyone has to bowl fast. And obviously Australia, they had the pitches as well, so it's slightly different with them. Um, and then that I would say influences Imran. And then when Wasim and later Waqar come into the team, like they have this mentor who's like teaching them the ins and outs, and they're also playing in England. But I think reverse swing plays a significant role in this because, first of all, reverse swing needs you to go fast, right? Just if you understand the kind of dynamics of it, that like conventional swing, actually you don't have to be too fast to be bowling it, and like that's why English cricket in particular created what we would call dibbly dobblers, who are running in and putting it like 60 miles, 70 miles per hour, and getting swing, like that's what they were good at. Um, you if you start bowling really fast, it actually you don't even pick up that same amount of swing. Conversely, with reverse swing, if you have a lot of pace, it helps. It exacerbates that kind of swing. It makes it happen later. And so Wasim Bakar have spoken about this a lot. Um, that they talk about, I think, the '96 England tour in particular, by which time they're actually kind of being so lazy that they're just bowling terrible straight balls with the new ball just to scuff it up as quickly as possible, and then really get into it while the innings is like 30, 40 overs old. And if you look at the scorecards from that series, I'm pretty sure they meant the 96, but both 92 and 96, they do this to England, where they just basically show up to reverse swing and then they absolutely destroy England with like their stunning collapses over and over and over again. Um, and that obviously is also the peak of like the uh, kind of British like establishment's knee-jerk reaction to this. Um, but yeah, so they kind of and now in their later years, I feel both Wasim and Waqar in particular, um, really feel a lot of regret maybe about how um, in their minds they weren't disciplined enough when they were younger. And I think there is or maybe there's just a lot more the typical conservatism as you grow older, where I think they look back at like, this anecdote कि हम new ball पे मेहनत नहीं कर रहे थे और reverse swing पे ही सिर्फ कर रहे थे, is like a little bit of criticism, or
Mm.
can be seen as like, you're not really giving it your best, whatever, whatever. But I think um, whatever it is, it also speaks to just kind of that, the the level of that skill and the faith in that skill. I don't think that comes as an accident. Like it, and as the years have passed, we've understood how difficult reverse swing is. Like yeah, scratch karne or whatever, being able to control it and being able to deliver it is another thing altogether. And so in that case, I think they're a bit too critical of themselves. But yes, like I think that, as I said, like, I brought up tape ball because I think reverse swing, anyone who's following international cricket can see. Tape ball, if you're not from Pakistan, you don't really know about. But I think, again, like not with Wasim and Waqar, but like it's all of those things coming together where it's like reverse swing is one reason. You've got these icons and mentors is another reason. And then you've got the fact that like every Tom, Dick, and Harry can now bowl fast, because they're like, jab aap gali mein, when you're going out to play, like, again, like growing up, like I never, there was, if anyone could bowl spin in tape ball cricket with any kind of authority, like they'd be famous because it was so rare. Everyone bowled fast. And so, like I didn't really realize how unique that was until I was much older. But that's the thing with like tape ball. And you can go on YouTube and watch tape ball tournaments. They're like incredible things that happen. And you see like everyone in that is, and you can't, in these tournaments you can't take the tape off, so you're not getting that same crazy reverse swing, but they're still able to swing the ball. But you'll see they only bowl yorkers and they bowl bouncers. So I bring that up to say, like, that bowling fast and like yorker and bouncer, that culture was there as well, and so reverse swing fits into it. The emergence of these once in it, like now, back then again, like it was like, oh, Imran came, and then Wasim came, and then Waqar came, and then Zahid or Shoaib or whatever. It just felt like it's a normal thing to have these kind of cricketers, right? Like it's after, well, my whole life that you realize that this was a kind of once in a lifetime thing, in several ways coming together for Pakistan. But you know, there's some kind of that human element involved, and then there's like some structural thing involved. And I think maybe not for when Wasim and Waqar joined, but definitely at their peak, reverse swing was their muse, their main art, their, the thing that definitely made the biggest impact.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about some spells also later on. You mentioned some of Wasim Akram's spells, and especially in the '92 World Cup final. You talked about the '96 series as well. We'll come to the spells as well in some time, Ahmed. But I want you to now talk a little bit about the British reaction to reverse swing. Just like any other in any other aspect of cricket, the British media tries to always have its say, and that's why they're criticized by a lot of people, not just the Aussies. So when the reverse swing came into the picture, especially in '92, now I don't remember when did Pakistan go to England in '92 after the World Cup, or was it before the World Cup? So after the World Cup, right?
After.
After. So by that time, Wasim Akram and his two deliveries had already happened in the World Cup final. So Pakistan were the world champions going to England. So probably I don't know whether that was irking the English media or not. But the fact that of course, I started watching cricket only in '96. So I've only seen visuals of that '92 series where the ball was swinging like a banana, and players like Alex Stewart and Neil Fairbrother, if I'm not wrong, or some of the other players, they had absolutely no clue. So, what do you say about the British media's reaction at that point of time, and how did they sort of come to terms with the fact that yes, this was an art? Because just looking at Google and looking at some of the reactions of the British media, they called it as a dark art, and they called it we gave it different names like tampering the ball. They felt that it was unfair to the batters, and it was a departure from tradition. Remember, the English are always very big on tradition, and they called it as a dark art. So, what do you say about their reaction, and how did it change over the period of time?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction, very broadly speaking, like there's a lot of Orientalism, straight up racism, and also this kind of this moral panic in England every time their sporting teams in history were like being demolished by teams of color. Like, you see that happen to them in football also, and then in cricket as well. Um, I think that 92 tour again is like insane. And I remember seeing this headline um, from The Sun, and it might have said Park cheats, but I really remember it saying Paki cheats, which of course Paki in the UK is a slur already. So I'm not sure if I'm misremembering it or whatever, but I definitely there was two things. First, there was this insane reaction in the tabloids, and it was just, very easy to kind of, here's this extremely white, even in England, it's like a very white and elite sport. And there's all these brown people coming in and they're doing this cheating and beating the home country. So, the narrative writes itself for the tabloids. I think the second thing is, outside of reverse swing and outside of Pakistan and Wasim and Waqar, even, that if you look at the history of cricket, um, broadly speaking, anytime batters do something, it's innovative, and so like the simplest example is the switch hit. Like Peterson pulls it off, and the very next day it becomes part of the game's rules, right? Now,
Do,
is
do
it
you think do you think
unfair?
that
What
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you think that was because Peterson was an English batter, or you just think that just a batter in general and that's why?
No, it definitely helped if, like, if Sehwag had done it, I don't know if the MCC would be falling over themselves to uh, make that change, or, so yes, of course it mattered. But I think broadly, again, like with you look at it, that, like, the way, again, it goes back to the history of the game itself, but the way it's structured, it protects the batter a lot, right? And like, I think at the very uh, and like the basic understanding of cricket is that being batting is really hard, and like you only get one chance and blah blah blah, and it flows from that, right? Like there's billions of examples, like the leg side wide. It's one of the stupidest, kind of craziest things you can imagine. So that way you see that the sport has historically had this kind of dynamic where it doesn't allow innovation from bowling, and it goes back to the all the way back to the creation history of the game, where there was quite often someone rich, a lord or whatever, who's batting, and like the local working class people have been assembled to bowl to them. And so really is in the DNA of cricket itself. So I think you have to understand that as well before you even get to this, right? And then you see that, like, so like short pitch bowling from the West Indies a decade ago was kind of litigated very similarly, right? And it was still within the parameters of the game's laws, whereas reverse swing, you know, it's to this day is not legislated properly, because there's just kind of no, there's not, with bowling always there's a lot of inflexibility, and b, that there's so many ways to achieve it, and there's so little understanding of it, etc. And there's so we don't have a really nice place to be in. But anyway, so you had this campaign from the English tabloids in 92 and in 96, and then in one of those tours, I think the second one, Alan Lamb and Ian Botham had sued Imran Khan. um, it was, I think, ultimately it was like a libel case, but it was related to reverse swing and etc. I'm trying to remember. I think what exactly it was, but essentially, whatever the details was, this was another kind of battlefront on this kind of war, and yeah, like I think you even now you'll find like when you look up like the history of reverse swing, etc., like like famously Martin Crowe, for example, uh in a tour to Pakistan, I think he scuffed up the ball with like a bottle cap, and they practiced in the nets and etc. And so I think, again, Crowe was always like a really progressive kind of guy, but even in that kind of recounting of those stories, there's that the underlying thing is this is a cheating, this is a way to cheat, right? And so that's what's happening over here. And the long story short, it's in 2005 when England, after being dominated in the well, they've been dominated in the Ashes their entire history, but in a particularly long period of domination, they finally beat the Australian team using reverse swing. And that's really when the acceptance completely happens. And Wasim Akram has this great phrase for this, where when you were like, how the hell did the English learn this? And it's because there was a lot of Pakistanis from that 90s team playing in the county circuit. And Wasim Akram says that in Urdu or Hindi that, Billi Sher ki khala hoti hai, right? Because Billy knows all the secrets and doesn't tell Sher all the secrets. That's what allows it to remain the khala. And he was like, Mushtaq Ahmed, basically playing for Sussex, gave up the secrets. He taught his teammates. Sussex also had very impressive period in the county championship during Mushtaq's stay there. And that's where it kind of enters the English game. And once it enters the English game, then we really go towards like this acceptance towards it. And we still have, ups and downs, as anyone following cricket knows, like the sandpaper gate incident and et cetera, et cetera. So even now, it's not something that a bowler can openly adopt and take on. But I think, as the understanding of what causes reverse swing has increased, now you see like every team, at least every good test team has guys who are like constantly shining the ball, who are constantly making sure that one side, once the ball has gotten a bit old, that one side is shiny, one side is rough, etc., etc. And again, like I think it's not been totally accepted. It comes back. So we've traveled a long way, but now we still live in a world where we can talk about it and do podcasts about it without like the first comment being like, oh well, it's cheating, because a lot of people can do it. But really, when back then it was not just seen as cheating, it was a legal case. It was like this insanely racist media campaign. It was really at the heart of it. And I think it was also a way of kind of, you know, delegitimizing what was happening. That, yeah, they can only beat us when they cheat. Because, of course, we also beat them in the World Cup final, and then we beat them in these two series. I think it's 87, 92, 96. Pakistan won all of those tours to England.
No, but Emma, so I want to put you on the hot seat here, and I want a yes or a no from you, if you can. Um, you know, it's like, so I'm no expert on reverse swing, but I want to know from you, because there have been experts who have said that at the end of the day, the you know of course there has to be some natural conditions in terms of dryness in the pitch or in the outfield for the ball to be able to be reverse swung, but there has to be some sort of intervention needed by the bowlers. I mean, you want to call it, British media called it tampering in the early days, or altering the condition of the ball in a slightly inorganic way to be able to do reverse swing. Do you think that, or do you say, do you believe that you have to one has there has to be an intervention, a manual intervention to be able to do the reverse swing, or you just think that keeping one side of the balls shiny and the other ball is scruffed up will enable? What is your take?
I wish this seat was hot, Siddharth. Like, this is the coldest, bone dry seat for me. Like a band. I mean, like you know, as you probably know this, and anyone kind of picked up on this so far, like, man, fuck the batters. Like, that's where I stand on this. And I think, I mean, okay, let's just put, one to that one side. But I think broadly speaking, um, if we're really concerned about, what is okay, so let me just formulate my thoughts. First of all, is any kind of intervention needed? There's a lot of ways to create the scuffy side, right? So if the square is really hard and the ball keeps hitting that, that's one way of creating it. A quicker way, and there are cricketers, international cricketers in every team, Jinki, their claim to fame is that they're like nails, are just like fucking diamond encrusted or something, because they're like knives, and you can just scuff up the ball within seconds. And there's a million different kind of nuances to it. But I think we like, it just kind of blows my mind that we ask these questions, right? And it kind of shows to me, that's, I feel these are the reasons why I really got into like, thinking about cricket's colonial impact, cricket social politics, etc. Because there was no really other way to understand it, right? Like, because so we're in this situation now where when I'm bowling, the batter can literally walk up to my face. There's nothing to prevent the batter from doing that, right? And if I kind of overstep 1 millimeter, then I'll get fined, right? The batter can go this way, can go that way, whatever. That's one angle of it. Then look at the equipment, if to make an apples to apples comparison. I don't know if you've seen this video that Kevin Peterson did with Yuvraj Singh, where they make Yuvraj bat with like bats from 100 years ago to like today, and he's more or less playing the same shot, and they tell you about how the bats are different and the technology has changed, blah 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 blah. I mean, but you don't need like that. Just if anyone is interested, they can look at it. But even anyone can tell, man, like the bats have changed completely. And now anyone is managing to hit sixes and fours, etc. So, एक तरफ you're allowing the complete change of the equipment altogether. The other place you have not allowed the equipment to change for centuries. you know, and uspe bhi you're like, not only with like, someone from the freaking 16th century or the 18th century can pick up this ball and not be surprised by how it looks. But if you make one scratch on it or something on it, then oh my God, this is a moral dilemma. And, should we allow it? Should we not allow it? Like, that's insane to me, And I think I don't want to step out of my lane, but I think something again that I'm really indebted to a lot of feminist um, theorists and writers, because when they talk about the patriarchy, and like one of the main things is that you don't even question its logic, and you kind of impose its logic. What about her family's honor if she's sleeping around? Like, you internalize these really stupid and horrible ways of looking at the world. Like, I think that kind of process about like entrenching certain values, like um, you see that in cricket as well, like in the sense that we have accepted this worldview, a certain worldview that is been held by people in power, and we proceed from that front only. And so that's why when English bowlers could do it, it was still something that entered the realm of decency, because before that it was not even legal or right or moral or whatever to do. So I think that's um yeah, like that's my answer to it, because like okay, sure, if you have a problem with equipment being tampered with, then let's give everyone bats from 100 years ago, like the bowlers are doing that. Why don't the batters have to do it? And the batters have all of these advantages. Again, like bowler, this is like the popping crease, the back crease, and the side marker. Like they have to land here, right? There's nothing else they can do. Like, chalo, you're not allowing them no balls. I get that, but like they can't even score from behind the, like one some part of the foot has to be touching the piche wali crease as well. So like that's the kind of insanity that we've completely normalized the batter being able to use the entire width and length of the pitch. And we still legislate so heavily on the fact that if the bowler manages to send it like 1 degree down the leg side is going to be an extra run. So I think, to me, there's no question over here. Like, and I understand like there's a there's this thinking that everyone wants to see more runs being scored, and so again you see that in the pitches, and you see that in the bats, and you see that in the rules. And I'm not like, I don't want us to go back to the past, so I'm fine with all of these changes. But that's why I think like you need to kind of understand that reverse swing is part of the game and then legislate accordingly. And like I think if you're kind of clever and proactive about it, maybe let's do this. That, like, I don't know, in a T20, every team gets 2 overs of their choice when they get like a scuffed up ball, right? Like let's kind of give something like that in play. And I mean, yeah, like I think cricket is way too conservative to ever even imagine doing something like this with bowling. But I think that's where, or you just kind of stop changing balls all the time, or like as long as maybe you're not using an external object, right? So don't bring like a blade into it, but if your nail is strong enough, go for it, brother. You want to use your teeth.
Like Shahid Afridi did, yeah. No, I think you makes a lot of valid points, Emil. I think when we talk about the undue advantage that a batter gets, I guess the only counter that I can give playing a devil's advocate here is that a batter needs only one good ball to get out, whereas a bowler can bowl five boundary balls and still has a chance to come back with a sixth ball in the over. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why the game is heavily tilted towards the batters. Apart from obviously the fact that the broadcasters need the game to carry on as long as possible. That's why we see the 2 day finishes that we saw in two of the test matches in the Ashes recently. Again, sort of shifted the focus on what the broadcasters want, and they are a little upset with that. So yeah, I mean, I agree with all of the points that you make,
I think
Emma.
also, Siddharth, this argument has been true since like 1764 or whatever, right? On the batter and the bowler. But that's where I think its limitations also lie, right? Like, yes, it was true when cricket was being played in a very different kind of way, sure. But then we've changed so rapidly, because, like, now when you come to a T20 game, actually, if you lose your wicket, um, statistically also, I think it's been shown that it's not actually as bad for you as a dot ball or something like that after a certain point. Um, and that the bowler can be picking up wickets and bowling dot balls, and they really have, but they have really, it's so hard for them to even impose any control on that at all, right? Like if if I give you the chance to, like, for your life, your option is to either hit, one boundary against an international bowler, or get a international batter out in 1 over. I know what choice everyone is going to make. Like there's, like, even if you hold your bat up like this and it takes an edge, you can get a six now. You're not going to get an international batter out. So I think that's where the it's like we've gone way past those imagined kind of interactions between bat and ball. And I think, again, like, even if that, if this was the guiding principle, then you would see it play out in the interpretation of the game's laws, right? Like, again, like the Dusra, for example, and chucking, like, this has been such a moral dilemma. But, again, like, what about ramp shots or scoop shots? Like, you can make the argument that they're dangerous, or you could make the argument that they're, like, making it very difficult there of bowling certain types of balls or whatever. But even as I'm making these arguments, they're sounding ridiculous, because in cricket, we believe that a batter should be able to do whatever the fuck they please. And the bowler should always be encumbered with 1,000,001 rules and laws. And the way we justify it is, oh, they only get one chance. But, as I just pointed out, like, if you had to put your life on it, no one's going to be choosing bowling as the way to go ahead, because of how unfair that system is.
No, I think there's so much more to talk, Amar, but we need to move ahead. But I just want to tell you that you brought out the aspect of the Dusra. I feel that Saklin Mushtaq, and then I guess an even greater exponent of that was Saeed Ajmal. It's just such a pity that maybe because he was from Pakistan, he had that bowling action issues, and yes, yeah, maybe he was bending that elbow to a much larger extent than what was allowed. But the fact that when he used to bowl, genuinely after Shane Warne, I saw a spinner whom I was excited to watch when he came on to ball. And this I don't know, Emma, whether you have noticed this or not, but during Sachin Tendulkar's last few years of his career, when he faced Saeed Ajmal, he was all at sea. Now there are two games that come to my mind. I'm sorry, I'm digressing a bit from the art of reverse swing, but I would love to take your opinion. One was the 2011 World Cup semi-final, where Sachin
Yes.
was lucky on many occasions, mostly of the bowling of Saeed
And
Ajmal.
DRS also didn't give him out.
Yes,
Overturned that
overturned,
LBW versus
overturned. Yeah,
Ajmal.
and in fact, the umpire who gave him out, I don't remember who it was now, was also very surprised when he saw the DRS.
I
Ultimately,
remember Manjrekar, like, was like on the commentary box. He was like dying and coming alive at the same time because he couldn't believe it.
yes, but those who did not see that game, I'm sure there'll be very very few of them. But in the highlights packages, you don't get to see. But there were in live watching that game, Sachin was actually at sea even while he was scoring runs. He was getting very lucky. Finally, he was dismissed by Saeed Ajmal, and then the final ODI of Sachin's career was the Asia Cup match in 2012, Emma, if you remember. Pakistan had set 329 or something. India went on to win. Kohli made that majestic 183, and Sachin made a half century in that game. But most of that half century was made before Saeed Ajmal had probably got on to ball. And even during that brief time when Sachin faced Ajmal, he looked at sea. Couple of times he missed the ball. He was almost stumped, and finally he edged a ball to the first slip. So I feel Saeed Ajmal was such a fantastic bowler. Maybe I have to do another episode with you on the Dusra. But I feel one Test match I remember when Saeed Ajmal picked up 10 wickets against South Africa, and but Pakistan went on to lose that game, a very tight game in the second innings.
Siddharth, are you just like trying to, like, mentally torture me or
No,
something?
no,
Like,
no.
you're bringing up like every bad memory for
No,
me from a certain era.
No, I mean, for me, I'm just remembering Saeed Ajmal and what it could have been, because after he came back
Yes.
from the ICC's rectification of his bowling action, he was half the bowler that was not even half the bowler, and he didn't even play too much of cricket after that. So, I mean, just one of those could be moments in world cricket, not just Pakistan cricket, I would say. Um, yeah, I mean, that just came to my mind, when you talked about Dusra. But moving on, I want you to,
Yeah, if I could actually just say a few
yeah,
things on this. I think I'll say a bunch of things. Okay, first of all, you see that attitude about bowling. In Pakistan, that's obviously famous for like pace bowlers and reverse swing or whatever. But if you start with Abdul Qadir and then Saklan Mustaq and Mushtaq Ahmed, um, and then you come to Ajmal. So you see there's this lineage of like basically spinners who act like fast bowlers, right? And again, where like Ajmal was great with the Dusra, like Saeed Anwar invented it, or again perfected, whatever you want to say. But like he's the one who kind of not Saeed Anwar, Saklan Mustaq.
Saklan, yeah.
He's
Yeah,
the one who's done it and like brings it into the game. And I think with Ajmal also, he was amazing at it. But then there was that period where he was really being bowled down to the ground. He was being played in every match, and Misbah would make him bowl like a billion overs. And so I remember that, like, when they were measuring as well, like, there was this time where he was like maybe flirting with the edges of whatever the legality of it was. And then there was a time where it really was just all over the place. And his action had deteriorated a lot, and it was because of like this kind of he just bowled like an insane amount of overs in every format for Pakistan constantly. And it really kind of, that did affect him a lot as well. But I think, this is so A, I wanted to acknowledge that kind of attitude towards bowling that we were talking about, and the cultural impact of it. You see that in spinners as well, who like this kind of very innovative, aggressive, have this aura around them.
yeah,
And secondly, that it also once again the innovation that's coming out of here, but also like cricket's again moral panics about these sorts of things, right? Because like I mean, let's just say that if you're bowling between 60 miles an hour, go ahead, chuck, who cares? I think that's the simple solution to this, but we're never going to get to a solution like that. And it's sad because, as you said,
yeah,
like it says a lot of skill involved in doing this. It's not the same as just like sitting there and flinging something, like getting that ball from that action to turn away. That's a big, big skill. It's this like first new skill that enters the game in like such a long time from the bowling end. And again, we see like the reaction to it. That's what I've been talking about in the past as well, right? Like it's not just like this even application of the law or the spirit of the game. It is one side is allowed to do whatever they please, and the other side will always be a moral panic. I think I should also add that with the Dusra, there was a brief period where the ICC itself was also like, I don't want to get into the culture wars of banning people. And so they really, relaxed. And then there was a kind of drawback. And I think, again, even this was for me, like really transitioning from just like a blogger to like maybe a reporter and a journalist on cricket. And I think what I also learned at that time was that there was a lot of unrest and displeasure within the Pakistani cricket establishment of like chucking and dusras and whatever, and like a kind of mandate to completely end it from the game because people were worried that there was a lot of exploitation of it, etc., etc. But again, now as we've got that, what's his name, Usman Tariq or something, that um, that guy who just kind of freezes and then everyone's like kind of called him a chucker, like he was in the IL 10 or something or
ILT
whatever.
20.
Anyway, so
Okay.
he's
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say is that that tradition is still alive and well in Pakistan cricket. But yeah, I think it ties into what we were talking about earlier as well today, right? Like, what are the kind of cultural and structural things that lead to this thing emerging out of Pakistan
Yeah, I mean,
cricket?
cricket is so much poorer without that art. The idea that you floated that if a bowler is bowling at 60 miles per hour, let him bend his elbow a little bit more. What's the harm in that? I quite agree with that. But then, there are bowlers who will come with loopholes. There are fast bowlers who will probably bowl at 60 miles per hour and bend their elbow, and then, that rule will again be
But
revisited. So,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that's so wrong, right? Like, because batters have continuously come up with ways to
yeah.
have loopholes. So it's not a level playing field, is all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. By the way, Amir, one spinner that you missed out in the lineage of Pakistani spinners, and unfortunately, that guy has always not been mentioned much, is Danish Kaneria.
Danish Canaria.
I mean, the guy has
Man,
picked
I
up
mean, I could mention
260
Danish
test
Canaria.
wickets.
I would definitely mention Danish Canaria, but there is, first of all, like every time I read a Danish Canaria stat, it blows my mind of like how many more wickets he had than I remember. I think also that again, like that record is not as stellar with all of those other things. And then that Canaria was like more specifically a red ball bowler. Never really kind of made it to the white ball team. And so I think that when I think if I'm like really honest, Saklan and Ajmal in particular were like just kind of demonic white ball spinners as well, who were also great test ball spinners. And to be fair, you could make that argument to Mushtaq was not as good as them in the white ball, but definitely Canadia then is a much
Yeah,
step lower there. But yes, I was very aware that I'd skip past Canaria, but I think also the point I was making, I didn't pick every Pakistani spinner from that era, but these kinds of Bharam Wale types a little bit. And I think, yeah, like in the since Ajmal's retirement, also like all of those guys that we've gotten are a lot more typical in terms of like their um, attitude or whatever.
yeah. Okay, Emmer, quickly coming to the last couple of points that we have, please share with us some of your memorable spells of reverse swing that you have seen in white ball or red ball cricket that still that you feel that viewers of today's generation who are probably watching this chat would like to revisit.
Man, so again, this is where I feel like Usman and so many other fans like unki memories itni achhi hoti hain, and then I'm terrible at this, but so let me give like just this is not a list of the greatest reverse swing you'll ever see, but these are things that I remember. I think first of all, अब मैं उसका Robert Croft नाम था, एक English spinner था, and Waqar
Yeah,
bowls to him.
yeah,
And the short version is that the umpire doesn't give it out. And it's a ball that kind of starts going towards the offside, then it whips back towards leg stump before becoming an outswinger again. So it starts outswing, then inswing, then outswing. And I think it's like going outside. He's looking to play it outside leg stump and it misses his off stump, or it hits him outside off stump or something like that. And the umpire doesn't give it out. And I'm pretty sure it's Robert Kraft, so that's how you can search it. Um, the one of a very infamous one is like Razak bowled it, Abdul Razak in Sharjah in the 90s versus Sri Lanka, where Sri Lanka needed like I don't know, like 4 runs or something, and
yeah.
we end up 5 runs and they had 6 wickets, and like they
Mm.
end up tying the match. And that was one of those. I bring it up now, but that was one of those where in that moment, like I really didn't realize what is happening. Like it just always felt like, of course, your fast bowlers at their death can like be dragging the ball around. So obviously, I mentioned it. It is the like where it all starts, and the most iconic one is those two deliveries Wasim bowls in the World Cup final in '92. Those are huge as well. But I think where if there is a time where I'm watching reverse swing and being like, holy shit, this is crazy reverse swing. That's with Shoaib Akhtar, because I was older enough to understand it, and B, like he also was in an era of like, much better television coverage in terms of camera. zoom capabilities. Um, and so you have like the peak is Shoaib Akhtar against like an all-time great Australian side in Colombo.
Yeah.
I think that like kind of watching it, and I think that's where like Shoaib and Asif and Amir early years, like they had these great spells in multiple places. And a lot of times it was, either we didn't win the match or they actually didn't even pick up those wickets, etc., etc. And of course, in this one, we didn't win the match as well. But this was at least where like Shoaib picked up enough wickets for it to become iconic and become like a highlight reel.
Yes.
Because of course, the you have when Pakistan tours India in '99, there's a lot of great moments, but I'm not sure I would say like there was a great spell of reverse swing in that series. That again, that like I really remember. And then I think maybe an underheld thing, but like the craziest is Omar Gul reverse swinging it in T20s. Um, I think his best ever figures are against New Zealand, and
New
that
Zealand.
has, if
Mm.
that's the one I'm remembering. But he did it many times. But if that spell that he's reverse
He was a
swinging
good
in
bowler.
T20, and yeah, like when Pakistan won the 2009 World Cup, the T20 World Cup, like they were reverse swinging by like the 12th over or something. So there was like some great, and Umar Gul was like the all-time, I think, champion of that kind of style. So yeah, those are the ones I'd say. I would also say I think at Batta Fast we have discussed both some really iconic spells in our earlier episodes. So there's like a Waqar one from South Africa, which is again like a late reverse, crazy reverse swinging spell. We've discussed some of the seams in that as well, and some other in there. So I would encourage you to check those videos out on the Betta Fast page. And again, like, read up Osman on reverse swing. No one better at it.
Yeah. I'd also like to share some of my memories of some spells. So I have
Yeah.
the scorecard of the England-Pakistan second test match in 2001, Emmer. So Pakistan was
Oh,
trailing Pakistan. It was a
yeah.
crazy game. Pakistan was trailing 1-0
Yeah.
and
Old
Inzamam
Trafford,
played.
right?
Sorry? Yeah, Old Trafford. Yes, Old
This is
Trafford.
at Old Trafford.
Yes, yes. So Pakistan batted first. A beautiful century by Inzamam Ulaq. I think one to watch out again and again on YouTube. Then England managed 357 in their first innings, and then Pakistan again batted well in the second innings to give. Those were the times when Pakistan had a good batting lineup. And then England was chasing 370, and they were 146 for no loss at one stage with Michael Atherton and Marcus Trescothick. And from there, the kind of swing bowling that Wasim Akram and Waqar did, and then of course Saklian also picked up a few wickets towards the end. But from none for 146, they were dismissed for 261, and I mean that was a great spell. And that those were the days, Emil, when the crowd would just burst onto into the crowd. I mean into the stadium when a match would end. So that was one, of course, the '99
There's
Kolkata Test.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, of course.
No, no, please carry on. Yeah, you were saying something.
I was going to say that there's this idea that the 20th century officially ended with 9/11, like all of the kind of way that life was before and after, like that's that moment. And, the same way you could argue that like either that 2001 England tour or more appropriately the 2003 World Cup is when the 90s ended in Pakistan cricket. Like, that 2001 test is one of its last peaks where Wakar now is like really old and like not at his pace, but his is like a slightly slowed down version of
Yeah,
his 90s peak where the ball is still, but like I think there's he gets Trescothick out where it's just like it goes here and then it comes
yeah,
back into him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a good one. And then yeah, the 99 one, please go ahead.
Yeah, the 99. I mean, I was 13 years old that time, and I mean that is still so much in my mind. When go revisit that pure, adrenaline, the rush that was there in Shoaib Akhtar, that he ran all the way almost to the boundary. Then Wasim Akram said, "Wapas aaja." So when he dismissed Rahul Dravid, I think, and then he
Yeah.
dismissed Sachin Tendulkar, and he actually said later in his one of his interviews that he felt, looking at Sachin the way he was walking in, he felt that Sachin was not really prepared. he was sort of he was taking him a bit casually. But then, I mean, yeah, whatever said and done
I
was a
mean, like Shoaib Akhtar's storytelling is always amazing. I would never make the mistake of like thinking that there's some truth to it. Um, but I mean, he did miss a full toss. Like, if you want to get critical of Sachin, the Dravid delivery, I think that was the thing with like Dravid and Kalis. If you ever got them out like bowled, you knew it was going to be like one of the best
One of the
deliveries
best.
ever. Because like it just, yeah, like you really need to be on top of your game to get through that
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah. Another game, Ahmed, that I remember was the 2000 Sharjah Cup final between Pakistan and South Africa. Incidentally, that was the last ever.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, 2000 it was. That was probably the second last tournament that India ever played in Sharjah. That was when India did not make the final, and that was Wakar's early years as captain of the team. And South Africa was chasing 260 or something, and they were in a decent position. But then, Waqar just kept chipping in, and he was at the fag end of his career, but still got the ball to reverse. I remember how the way he clean bowled Mark Boucher in that game, and then Lance Klusner as well, probably. Just before that game, there was a league game between South Africa and Pakistan where Shoaib Akhtar dismissed South Africa for a very low total. Again, that was an incredible game. So yeah, I mean there are many many more such memories, but yeah, more before 2000 and less after 2000. Probably yes. Shoaib Akhtar's spell against Australia in Colombo that you just mentioned, that was an incredible spell. So yeah, I mean, some great spells. Wasim Akram's spell against South Africa in the '97 Independence Cup. I think he polished the tail for a very in a very short period. So that was I remember that as a child growing up. So many other games.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I think that's one of those classic Wasim dismissals, right? Where he's like just able to tail it into the leg stump of a right hander or the off stump of a left hander in the death. And it's like, especially those like bunch of hat tricks he picks up in that
yes,
99 kind
yes.
of era. Like they're really 8 minute his catches, but like, he's able to like conjure up that delivery out of nowhere. And I think that's where, that's what my like eh, when I when someone says what are the spells you remember, I feel sad that I don't really remember these spells. But like I was little, but more importantly, like I just thought this is how everyone can bowl. Like this
Well,
this is how I seen cricket. Like so I was kind of just never really appreciated that.
uh,
Um,
I guess it's not your
and
fault
yeah,
being a Pakistani that time, because being an Indian at that point of time, it was something exotic for us because we never got to see
for
anything
sure,
large
for
and big.
sure.
Again, I don't know whether you would regard that as a reverse swing spell. Shoaib Akhtar against New Zealand in New Zealand, when I think New Zealand had got a hefty first innings lead, and then Shoaib Akhtar came and just destroyed them for but just a little over 100. Probably it was more to do with pure pace than reverse swing, because I don't think in New Zealand you would get too much of reverse swing. But again, that was one
So
incredible.
there's a lot of spells. There's a lot of spells that I've been careful of not adding to this because I don't want to get into people much who understand this much better than me
Yeah.
will able to say it. But I think there's definitely Shoaib Akhtar also did this around like New Zealand was in Pakistan and like
Yes.
NZ had scored 100 or
2002.
something. That yeah,
2002. Yeah.
that a
Yeah.
huge total. And then like I feel that there's definitely some reverse in that one. But
Yes.
again, like Shoaib also was a very, very special bowler, which, in kind of the shadow was seen like, uh, there's just like the skill that these guys had. It's really now you understand how difficult that is to replicate. Like there are other bowlers with much better records than them. But when you look at that skill set that they had, like, and just the kind of craft that was involved in doing that, that was very, very special and unique.
Yeah. So, Ahmed, last question. You talked about a skill that now we realize is very difficult. And do you think is the art of reverse swing dying now in contemporary cricket, especially in the age of T20 cricket, where in 20 overs it's very you mentioned about Umar Gul's reverse swinging in the 12th over, but that's not the norm. Yeah, so in 20 overs of cricket you don't get to see reverse swing happening. Even in test cricket, you don't get to see that much in ODIs as well. and especially focusing on Pakistan, the likes of Shaheen Shah Afridi, Naseem Shah, Haris Rauf are not known, or at least we haven't seen any of the great reverse swinging spells from them in any format of late. So, being the pioneers of reverse swing, if that is not happening in Pakistan or by Pakistani bowlers, do you think that the art is now slowly fading away?
Um, I, I, I feel I'm not really positioned to answer that broadly, but what I would say is that I think that the way the game approaches it, there's a lot of legislation that, if not directly against reverse swing, definitely affects reverse swing, right? So like we, for example, moving more and more towards like not having those uncovered squares, which has a big impact on how much the ball reverses. I think, there is legislation around like the shape of the ball and checking that, and like, the kind of, we've normalized teams complaining and then which team complains and when, with another kind of issue. So I think, cricket's hostility towards reverse swing ebbs and flows. Um, and what we've seen is that when, like, the powerful boards have players who can do it, then they feel one way about it. When they don't, they feel another way about it. I think it's also significant that Australia in particular has never really embraced it. I think that's another kind of factor in it. Like, I don't want to be too kind of, there's a lot of nuance there as well. But way with Sandpaper Gate and everything, like there is a, maybe they're part of that establishment that resisted a little bit. But ultimately, I think, reverse swing is part of bowling, and we're seeing bowling itself, like, in um, the way that the sport has been going and continues to go. I don't really like, you every now and then you get like some kind of minor disruption, usually in the form of mystery spinners, and then everyone figures it out, and then we move on to the next thing. But what we see is that there's not any legislation or things in the game where we're looking to limit the batters, right? And so the way we prepare pitches, the size of the grounds, the size of the bats, the laws, the rules, etc., they're hostile to bowling in general. And so I think, like, someone like Shaheen Afridi, uh, his love for bowling Yorkers and, his ability for it. And I think Haris in particular comes from a tape ball background where, again, like, you have that ability to bowl Yorkers at will. They all have that skill set to bowl reverse swing, and I think, again, like, it is still very much entrenched in Pakistani cricket culture. Maybe I haven't spoken to anyone about it in the past few years, but unless things have dramatically changed, like, it is part of it. But yeah, like, there is the sport itself is so hostile to bowling that, this dark art or something that's on the fringes or the periphery, like, it'll of course get affected by all of those things.
Yeah, I just hope that for the sake of world cricket and cricket in general, we do get that art back. We've seen of late that the two new balls rule that was there in ODI cricket for the last few years, that has changed in the sense that at the end of the 34th over, the fielding team gets to decide which ball to keep for the last 16 overs of the inning. So I think that's probably a step in the right direction. Again, I guess more as you say, there has to be a few rule changes so that the bowlers do feel more incentivized to have disruptions. And I think disruptions in cricket are always welcome. The 90s, we remember so beautiful memories, such beautiful memories we have is not just because of the batting, but also because of some great bowlers. Yeah, I think we just need some more leeway for the bowlers to make this game more interesting. So yeah, thank you so much, Emma, for your time. Time just flies when I talk cricket with you. Always a pleasure to have you on the show and to know your opinions and the way you look at the game is so much more different from a lot of the people. So that's what makes it so much enriching to have you. Thank you so much, and I hope to keep in touch with you.
No, of course, man. I really, really appreciate the love, and Joe. I think the way that you uh, give so much izzat to whatever I do. I really, really appreciate that. It means a lot. And of course, like, would be inshallah back on the show very soon.
Absolutely. You deserve it all. So thank you, Emil. And thanks to all of you for watching this fantastic chat that I've had. I hope you've enjoyed as much as I've done. And until the next episode of the SNS Cricket Diaries, take care. Bye.
All right. Take care for the office.